And hello and welcome. Conrad Zen here, former Bitcoin Foundation member, entrepreneur and now evangelist for Hex, Pulse and Pulsex. So you can see I'm not in my normal location. So I've come up to the top floor. And the first thing I better do is make sure that everybody can see and hear me, because yesterday's broadcast was rug pulled. So if anybody's kind enough in the chat to give me a thumbs up, or just type a 1 to make sure that you can see and hear me, hear my dulcet tones. And I'll just check the chat before we continue on. Thumbs up or type a number 1 in the chat so I can know that you're actually hearing me. Don't be shy, anybody can do it, or maybe you can't see or hear me anymore. Who knows? I'm going to assume that today's broadcast is working. I'm in the middle of traveling around at the moment, back home for a short while before traveling off again. And I've recently been in San Francisco, where it's been extremely interesting to me to talk to a lot of people. And the takeaways that I have found is that even though all these guys and gals are in the middle of the universe of the next tech boom, very few of them actually understand the world of cryptocurrency, and even fewer of them are actually invested in cryptocurrency, which, when you consider the events of the past week, probably just as well. We are going through crypto Armageddon. We started off, of course, with the cataclysmic event of Terra Luna collapsing. Thank you, Mr. Dokwan, Korean national, who is probably going to go to jail over this one, so that's going to be a very interesting thing. That cascaded on to affect Celsius, Mr. Mashinsky and his Israeli gang, and of course they stopped withdrawals, they stopped swaps. You can still deposit money in Celsius, it's just that you're not going to get your money out of it. Unfortunately, I'm also involved in this, although, yeah, my own fault, I know. But sometimes you have to move money around. So I am also very unhappy with Mr. Wyszynski, I can tell you. But it's going to get worse, much worse, and here's why. A little known company, well, pretty well known company, 3 Arrows Capital, last Tuesday, just a few days ago, it became evident that they too had bet heavily on state ETH, amongst other things. And the worst thing about 3 Arrows Capital, Mr. Zhu, maybe you're watching. If you are, yeah, you're going to jail. So here's the thing. They built up a reputation. They're a Singapore-based duo, Carl Davis and Mr. Zhu, and they were able to convince people that they were creditworthy, they were trustworthy, and they were able to borrow billions of dollars without any form of security. You can't make this stuff up. They were able to fool a lot of people, and allegedly, even when they were asked to show their balance sheet, well, they did, but all that was an Excel sheet which they drafted up the day before with calculations on the back of a fag packet, as we would say in a British pub in England. So we're supposed to be in cryptocurrency. We're supposed to be in the decentralized finance world. We are supposed to be trustless. And that means that we don't have to rely on third-party people, and the trust factor is in the code. How do we get into this state where that trust has been broken by people and it's going to absolutely collapse the cryptocurrency market? So one of the important lessons to come away from all this is you have to be very careful what information you consume and who you trust to actually take on board what they're saying. Is it trustworthy? Is it true? Can you make valid investment decisions on what they're telling you? And of course, we all know the stories of the gurus who were shilling stuff that they really shouldn't be shilling. Bitboy Crypto is a name that springs to mind. Don't know why. It could be lots of other people as well. So what's going to happen? Well, in my view, the Celsius debacle, we haven't seen the end of it yet. They're keeping people hanging on, but it's quite evident they look like they're going to file for bankruptcy. Now, there's stuff going around that Goldman Sachs are going to bail them out. That is not true. Categorically, they are not going to be bailing out Celsius. Simon Dixon, I think he's an investor in Celsius, and he's trying to put together a savior group, but also I think ultimately that's going to fail. So my view is that we're not going to see any money back from Celsius. Years ago, I was involved in the Bitfinex debacle, where they got hacked, lost a significant amount of Bitcoin, and I'm still waiting to get my money back. And of course, Mt. Gox, people are still waiting to get their Bitcoin back from that. So even if Celsius goes bankrupt, does it all properly, the likelihood of getting any funds back from Celsius is highly unlikely in the near term and probably unlikely in the long term either. But the fallout from the Three Arrows Capital liquidation is going to be massive. Hold on to your hats. Monday morning could be extremely telling. And it all goes back to this trust thing. We should be living in a trustless DeFi world in the cryptocurrency space. Let me give you an example how people are being fooled and conned. I have been bombarded whilst in the United States from adverts from the American Bullion Society. They're named very many different things, and they're trying to sell you on the idea that you should be putting your money into gold coins. See, I knew that something was going to go wrong. The audio failed. Now try to get it back up. Let's see if it's working. Okay, I do apologise for these gremlins. This is what happens when you have a 70-year-old man trying to interact with the interwebs. Okay, so I hope you can hear me now. This will all get better when I'm moved again. Anyway, meanwhile, I was just saying that I'm being bombarded with these adverts from the American Bullion Society, and they present a very good pitch. They really do. But the most important information is completely missing from the presentation, and this is it. This is the graph of the price of an ounce of gold over the last 100 years. There's something very interesting about this graph, and that is this. They go down the route of telling everybody, look, you could buy an ounce of gold 20 years ago for $1,000, and look, you can sell it now for $2,000. What a fantastic investment. What they have failed to point out, of course, is inflation, because $2,000 today doesn't buy you anywhere near what you used to be able to buy for $1,000 20 years ago. So the very interesting fact about gold is if you factor in the inflation, then gold is in fact cheaper today than it was in 1980. How is that an investment? How is that an inflation hedge? It's just nonsense. And as for the ability to use gold coins in everyday usage, I highly doubt whether you're going to go down to the local grocery store and exchange your gold coin for groceries. It's just never going to happen. Furthermore, what people don't seem to understand with gold is that the majority of gold is traded on paper. And it is such a market that we are looking at, somewhere between 200 to 250 paper ounces of gold to 1 ounce of physical gold held is being traded every single day. What that means is people are buying nothing. They're trading nothing, which is never mentioned in those adverts. So the moral of the story, as far as I'm concerned, is you have to be very, very careful who you listen to and who you trust. And a lot of people get their information from YouTube. And there definitely needs to be some kind of verification system set up with not only the people who are broadcasting, but their credentials as well. Anyway, I digress. So what I'm trying to say to you is that we need to look at crypto, we need to get the best information that we possibly can, and we need to be investing in code, in trustless products. Well, over the last 2 years, there has only been one crypto asset that has been worthwhile investing in. And of course, those of you who are following me know exactly what I'm talking about. It's Hex. And for those of you who don't know what Hex is a crypto asset. You buy Hex, you lock it away, you stake it, and then in 2, 6, 10, 15 years' time, you reap the benefits. The best investment strategy, as told by Warren Buffett, is a strategy of time and compound interest. And that is exactly what Hex does. It mimics time and compound interest. There is nothing else like it out there. Now, a few of you who have only just got into Hex might be thinking, well, I've lost money. You can't be looking at Hex on a daily basis. Everybody does, but that's not the end goal. Getting wealthy is not a short-term viewpoint. That is the other thing that I've come across whilst I've been talking to people in San Francisco. The majority of people, the younger generation, are looking at crypto as a way to get rich in a very short space of time. They think they can invest, $1,000, $10,000, and within a month or so, they're going to be millionaires. It just doesn't work like that. That's gambling. That's a lottery. But what does work is time and compound interest. And of course, being early into a project that looks like it might affect an awful lot of people. The bigger the market that you are able to affect, then the more economic energy is going to be infiltrated into that particular market. And this is where we are with Hex right now. What I mean by that is we have a scenario where Okay, mega problems with the sound today. Really sorry about that. So I'm just going to do a quick recap. What I was saying overall is that the market is down from $3 trillion down to today. If you look at nomics.com, you can see the market's dropped down to 970 billion. We're also seeing Bitcoin drop down just 1%, $21,000, and the Ethereum price down 2%. Tomorrow could be Armaggedon. We've seen a dead cat bounce in Bitcoin, and we are likely to see the price of Bitcoin go down tomorrow, especially when the fallout of 3 Arrows Capital comes filtering through. Now, everybody wants to know what is going on with HEX then, because HEX, as we know, is the ultimate trustless crypto asset. You buy your HEX, you stake your HEX, you lock it up, and in return for your time, you get paid interest, and then you cash out. Yeah, you're going to cash out. Everybody says, oh, you know, when anybody sells HEX, everybody goes nuts. Well, you can't live off HEX, you need to live off the profits of HEX. So you do need to convert it, unfortunately, at the moment, into filthy lucre. So the price of HEX, let's just look at this. Today it's around 0.045. Yesterday was up to 0.056. Now, let me try and explain to you why you should be buying HEX today, and why if you bought HEX 10 months ago, you should still hang on to your hats. Because obviously the price of HEX went up by a lot, and people piled into HEX on the back of the idea that PulseChain was going to be launched. Now, as we know, PulseChain has been delayed and delayed and delayed. But here's another thing about that I want to talk about. The existing Ethereum code is, you know, everybody talks about Bitcoin code being spaghetti code. Well, let me tell you, the same is true exactly of Ethereum code. There have been so many developers working on this, and you've got to understand that Vitalik Buterin, he's the ultimate controller. So what he says goes. So you can have all these other guys working on a project, and he comes around and says, no, we're not doing it that way. We're going to do it this way. And then all the code has to change. And it's got to the state now where, and you can look this up, this is public knowledge, the developers themselves are acknowledging the fact that they've lost track of where they are in this code. So it's of, you know, no surprise to me that Ethereum changing from proof of work to proof of stake has not happened. Their goal of August this year has gone out of the window. And even when they do manage to crack that particular nut, the other important thing that we need to understand is that the Ethereum fees are not likely to change, even when they cut across to proof of stake. That is going to happen when they manage to bring in sharding, if and when sharding comes along. So I'm not making excuses for Richard Hart's development team. I think it's very bad that we haven't been able to launch. However, I can understand the problems that they're having, particularly with the idea of, you know, rewriting the code in Go for the validation aspect of it. So we're just going to have to hang tight. But anyway, going back to my original statement, a lot of people pile into HEX on the back of PulseChain being launched. It's been delayed and delayed and delayed, and people are getting very hacked off. People expected to be making money at this stage of the game, and nothing could be further from the truth. And a lot of that money went into HEX, and a lot of people have pulled money out of HEX, being fed up of the waiting game. Now, they're crazy, and it's all good for us, because the more people sell their HEX at these prices, the better it is for people like you and me, who can basically go and buy it for cheap. And believe you me, at 0.045, this is cheap. Look, let's talk about what happens when PulseChain launches. As we bump along, I think we're going to get another announcement from Richard saying we've been delayed again. I wouldn't be surprised if we don't launch PulseChain until September at the very earliest. Of course, I might be wrong. I don't have a crystal ball. People say I have balls of steel, maybe, but I do not have a crystal ball. I really don't know what's going on. I'm nowhere near the development team. So, but let's just say that I'm right and we don't get a launch until September. What that means is that the interest in buying HEX wanes again. Now, what that means for us is that the price of HEX is likely to bump along the bottom channel as we've seen for months now. But the most important thing that you have to recognize, and this is where the trust thing comes in, you have to recognize that this is the greatest buying opportunity that you have since HEX was launched. Now, a lot of you here who listen to me have made significant amounts of money with HEX. Some of you have cashed out, some of you have cashed out a little bit, and you're wondering whether it's worth to keep going with HEX. Well, my view is yes. Our view is most definitely yes, and here's why. If you are able to pick up a significant amount of HEX at this price, you're going to get double the number of coins when you're on PulseChain. We all know that. But let's just think about what that really means. If you're buying in today at 0.045, you double the number of coins you have when PulseChain launches. So in essence, you're buying at 50% discount today off the price, because what's likely to happen is when PulseChain launches, the HEX is going to be on there from day one. But where does that HEX come from? It's not free. It's not just created there. Well, it is. It's created and it's free. But my point is, it's still owned. It's not freely available to buy. Somebody else owns that HEX. People like me own that HEX. Do you really think that we are going to be selling our HEX cheaply? Do you really believe that? Well, I for one don't. And don't forget as well that when PulseChain is launched, the first couple of days, maybe the first 48 hours, there is no bridge. The only way that you can interact on PulseChain at the very beginning will be swapping the native Pulse coins that have been brought over. The first pair that will be created, undoubtedly, will be HEX Pulse, even HEX PulseX, who knows? Or HEX and MyCoin will also be created. But here's the thing. Somebody has to set the price. The first market maker is going to set the price. And I can guarantee you that ain't going to be cheap. And that's something that people are discounting, I feel, really, really bigly. You know, really bigly. They're really discounting this fact. We are in HEX to make money. Let's make no bones about it. We're not here for charity. We're not here because it's a game. It's not here because we love the technology. We are here for one thing only, and that is to make significant amounts of money. Do you think that we are going to sell our HEX cheaply at the very beginning? It's not going to happen. And so the most likely scenario is that we see HEX launching somewhere down here on the PulseChain, but very quickly we see it equalizing until we may even be more expensive on the PulseChain, by virtue of the fact that for quite some time the transaction fees are likely to still be significantly lower than on the Ethereum chain. So why would you buy HEX today and not wait? Well, the reason that you're not going to wait is because you don't know how much you're going to have to pay for HEX on the new chain. It's not a free pile of HEX that just gets minted out of nowhere. It is still owned by we the Hexagons. We the Hexagons are not going to sell our HEX cheaply. Richard Hart has stated many, many times that he does not want to see cheap HEX on either chain. So let's not forget who the majority holder is of HEX. We don't know who it is, but there's a significant amount of HEX which is never going to be traded. So we're looking at a very small percentage of HEX that's going to be available anyway on the new chain, and us Hexagons, I can guarantee you, we ain't selling HEX cheap. So I want you to bear that in mind, especially at today's prices, 0.045. If you don't have a lot of money, still, you can invest as much as you can afford. And I always say to people, you never invest what you can afford. You can't afford to lose. But at the same time, you know, where else are you going to make this money? Look, I alluded to the adverts that were on, you know, the TV about buying gold bullion. I find it absolutely crazy. The latest stats for the American consumer, the American economy, 50% of Americans have more credit card debt than savings. 50% of Americans have more credit card debt than savings. But here's something even more frightening. 50% of Americans have no savings at all. No savings at all. This is incredible. We have had no financial education in this country whatsoever. Nobody knows anything about money or how it works or what you should be doing with it. So anybody's best bet right now is the cryptocurrency world, and you know, we know what that's like, but Hex is our savior. There's no doubt about that. Now, I have to say, because I'm broadcasting in America, this is not financial advice. This is purely for entertainment only. And the reason for saying that is quite evident. The latest ruling from the US Senate, they have now said that anybody that was promoting BitConnect can now be sued as being a culprit of being involved in the fraud, whether they knew it was a fraud or not. So it's highly likely that prosecutors are going to go out to the promoters of BitConnect. I wouldn't like to be in Big Boy crypto shoes. So this is not financial advice. This is entertainment purposes only. So what am I saying, rambling on here? Well, this is a ramble. This is not my normal sort of broadcast. I'm not set up to broadcast, as you can see. I'm kind of moving around a lot at the moment. So yeah, the overall thing is this: buy Hex. Just buy more Hex. If you don't have enough money, dollar cost average in. Do what you can. Put a little bit in every single week and then just buy it. Doesn't matter what the price is, just buy it. Now look, you can, of course, use limit orders on places like matcha.xyz. You can even put limit orders on 1 inch if you wanted to. I find though, I get very impatient and I just can't wait. So when I buy Hex, I just go in and buy it. But you could put limit orders in if you believe that the price is spiking down. I mean, we did go as low as 0.2 the other day, briefly. And unless you're sitting in front of the computer all the time, you can't do that. So placing limit orders via 1 inch or matcha.xyz, that's a really good idea if you're interested in that sort of thing. So that's Hex. Here's the latest price today, around 0.4596. And you can see from this little graph here, are we looking at another dip? Maybe. It's just bumping along the bottom, as it will do, until we get more information from Mr. Hart on the launch of PulseChain. Now, PulseChain, what's the story here then? A lot of you are joining me from the Pulse clan or the PulseX clan, and are not that interested in Hex because you believe that the price appreciation in Pulse and PulseX will exceed that of Hex. Now, I'm not sure about that. And this is one of the things that, you know, nobody really knows. Nobody has a crystal ball. And I'll go back to what Richard Hart said at the very beginning. He said that you should invest 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. Now, if you are a traditional finance guy, that could be the way to go. Hedge your risk. Diversify your portfolio. But here's the thing, and I've always said this from day one, Conrad's law number 1, if you are not wealthy already, you cannot afford to diversify. You should put one horse and back it to the hilt. So if you think that Pulse is going to do better for you than Hex, then put all your money in Pulse. If you think PulseX is going to do better than the other two, then put all your money in PulseX. Off you go, because you will do way better by picking one of the three. There's no question about that. Just pick one and go hell for leather. Go all in. I and my team, we are backing Hex. We're backing Hex. So what's happening? Obviously, the T-share price of Hex just keeps ramping up every single day. Another reason why to buy Hex today and not tomorrow. The other interesting thing is, we talked about Hex, is it going viral? And one of the things that is happening is we are starting to see more and more people coming into the Hex ecosphere. We're almost up to 500,000 addresses. That of course doesn't mean we've got 500,000 individual people, but it does mean that we are getting more and more interest in Hex every single day. We've started to see, all right, that site's not working unfortunately. We are starting to see Twitter trending with Hex information, and we've seen Hex in the press, although most of it again has been completely untrustworthy with all sorts of rubbish information. Now, Richard Hart is probably the Marmite guy of cryptocurrency. People either love him or hate him. But one thing is very true about Richard Hart and his marketing, is he is reaching a heck of a lot of people. And that can only bode well when PulseChain does finally launch, because the delay has enabled more time for you guys and me to get the word out about what's going to be happening when PulseChain launches. It gives you more time to buy Hex, to accumulate more Hex before PulseChain launches. And so, you know, I really believe that if you look back in history, I mean, look, we've already got 2 years worth of data about Hex. It's not a scam, nobody's been scammed. Lots of people have made lots of money out of Hex. And I truly believe that in the future, it's going to make people significantly wealthy. Just look at the whale money that's moving around. These are very smart guys. You don't get to have tens of millions in the bank without being a little bit savvy. You don't have to be a genius, but you just need to have conviction. I mean, look, when you first bought Hex, it took a leap of faith, right? Even, you know, myself, when I first invested in Hex, I was so unconvinced of my own conviction that I immediately sold it all, millions. And then I regretted it very much down the road and tried to buy it all back at a much higher price. And I can see this happening right now today. Look at the price, people. Look at this price. How can you not be sort of moved to open up your Ethereum wallet and garner some more Hex? Don't forget, stake it out. The average stake length at the moment is around 6.1 years. So if you want the best return, make sure your stakes are at least 6 years out. But what if you're as old as me? What if you might be dead in 6 years' time? What do? Well, don't forget that Hex is a generational wealth game. You could stake your Hex and you could donate it to your children. Now, okay, here's another thing. Safety. Since I've been in the States, oh my God, I cannot believe how many attacks that I've had to repel, both physical and on the internet. This place is dangerous. I thought I lived in a pretty dangerous place before, but America is even worse. They're very, very tech-savvy guys. And some of the stuff that I've seen just recently just blows my mind. Some of you might know about a little program that you can run called Beef. That is so dangerous, I cannot believe it. There is a bot that is for sale on many Telegram groups, many Discord groups, and this bot is an automated voice service that will phone you up and it will get you to put in your two-factor authentication for your bank account and bye-bye all your money. And this scam is so good that even people I know who are fairly sophisticated, well, one guy I know has lost a significant amount of money out of his bank account via one of these bots. So be very, very careful out there. So I'm going to conclude today because I'm rambling along and I'm just here rah-rahing the idea that you guys should be buying Hex today at 0.045. I'm accumulating. I have done so more in the past couple of weeks because, you know, I really believe that we are getting somewhere near the launch of PulseChain. And I'm highly excited to see what is going to happen with both Pulse, Pulsex and Hex. I'll be talking more about what I think is going to happen with Pulse price and Pulsex price, the staking elements, etc. in my next video. But for now, I'm done. Watch out for tomorrow morning. There could be fireworks and not July the 4th type. So, any burning questions in the chat? I hope I haven't been talking to myself for the last 40 minutes. Let's see. Crypto Keeper says, did you already give your Pulse price prediction yet? No, I haven't given a price prediction. I will talk about it in my next video. Tail7 has made a significant 555 stake for his children. Well done. Hex Investment Trust can help 401ks, IRAs, pension funds, etc. Anthony Mono, I can't pronounce your name, Monoz. I'm 19 years old. I was fortunate enough to get into the PulseChain and PulseX sacrifice, and I have multiple hex states. What's best advice you have for a younger individual like me? Well, you're already doing it. But what I would do, Anthony, is I don't know where you are in the world of working or finance or whatever, what your finances are, but I would put as much as I could into Hex right now, today, and keep dollar cost averaging in. And I would suggest by the minimum, when you're about 23, 24, you'll be a millionaire, if not a multi-millionaire by then. James Staker is saying PulseChain is like Noah's Ark. Hex and PulseX are those beautiful horses and lions and sheep. Okay, very poetic. Somebody said they sacrificed all the money for PulseX. That's their horse. Okay. I definitely see Hex economic black hole theory versus economic depression winding up. Who wins? What if the African priest one day dies and he takes his private keys into the grave? His Hex is kind of burnt from the circulating supply, less cell pressure. Don't agree with the last part of that sentence, but yes. Is there an economic depression coming in 2023? I think we are in a depression, and we're likely to see that coming at the end of this year. Nicholas Luciano, nice to see you again. I hope you're doing well down there in the land of Oz. Bottom has already happened, somebody says. I'm hoping that the Hex user base widens to greater than 500k, about 300k wallets. Yeah, absolutely. Hex is nowhere near viral. Nobody's heard of it. Nobody. I mean, look, I'm talking to myself in an echo chamber here. The people that are watching this video broadcast have already heard about Hex. They've already heard about Pulse. They've already heard about PulseX. We need to reach the people who have never heard of us. Not going to happen on my channel yet because you guys don't subscribe. Look, I've been doing these videos for 2 years, and how many subscribers are here? I don't even know. 6,000 something? That's crazy. Why is there not 6 million people watching my videos about Hex, Pulse and PulseX? I have no idea. Maybe I'm a rubbish broadcaster, who knows? Crypto Keeper says, no rug pull today, lots of snafus. Yeah, I'm doing my best. Don't worry, they're going to get better. I am going to do a few more videos in the future, I've decided. Richard Dominic says he couldn't pay his electricity bill. Isn't that the truth? Audio's out again. Okay, so I hope you guys can hear me. Any other burning questions before I sign off for today? Melting in the heat here, the air conditioning's off so you guys don't have to listen to the fans, and I'm sweltering to death. LGF Sound says Hex at 0.52, 52 cents was the same as Bitcoin at $30. Absolutely. The opportunity is staring you in the face, and don't miss it. Just recognize it. It's very important. For our aliens, nice to see you again. Hex is not a token, it's code, never going away. Absolutely, it's immutable, gets copied over onto PulseChain. Here's one last thing about that. The T-share rate, the number of Hex that you need to buy a T-share, your T-share, of course, the number of T-shares you have determines what percentage of the interest that gets printed every day you get. The Hex rate, when we launch on PulseChain, will be exactly the same as it is on Ethereum. Don't get that confused. It's not going to be a different rate. What will be different will be the dollar value that you need to buy the same number of hex. So for example, the rate today is about 21,000 hex per T-share. When PulseChain launches, it'll be the same, 21,000 hex. However, you may be able to pick up hex a little bit cheaper on PulseChain at the very beginning, which means you'll be buying your T-share cheaper. However, if you buy hex today, you get a copy. There's nothing cheaper than free, as I keep trying to point out. Okay, that's enough for today. I'll be back with a proper broadcast next week, I promise you, hopefully with no sound or video issues. And I wish you a very happy and prosperous Sunday, and I will definitely see you sometime next week.